What is obedience? Following the orders given by other people? Good enough definition. Is it ever appropriate to disobey? The first example that comes to mind is civil disobedience, which is peacefully breaking laws. That's why it's called civil. It's not extreme disobedience. You're like in the civil rights era, there was they would just sit in place. African American people would sit in segregated areas or drink, do things that were breaking the law, but the law was corrupt, and so they had to break it to reveal its inadequacy. What I'm coming at with this is a couple points here. First is I really caught on to this from Jordan Peterson in his third book, I should say, Beyond Order. But he talks about Harry Potter and Hermione and Ron, obviously the trio, as people who were pretty good rule followers most of the time, but also had the discernment to know when to break those rules for the greater good, as Dumbledore and Grindelwald would say. They broke the rules for the greater good. But back to Jordan Peterson here. In the first chapter, Rule 1 of his Beyond Order book, he says, "Follow the rules until you are capable of being a shining exemplar of what they represent. But break them when those very rules now constitute the most dire impediment to the embodiment of their central virtues." So follow the rules until following the rules is immoral, is what he's saying there. Wherever there's a principle, there's a higher principle. That's why we can fly. That's why we can fly planes, because there's an even higher principle than gravity, and that's man. Man literally defies gravity. That's why Jesus could walk on water. He was defying gravity. That's the main thing he was defying, not water. He was defying gravity. So it's basically saying Jesus has power over gravity. For what it's worth, I'm not sure what that has to do with rule following, other than the fact that, Jesus was a rule follower, but he was also kind of a rule breaker. He definitely had a reputation for atypical Jewish leadership behavior, I guess. I mean, the leadership of the Jewish people at the time were quite critical of him, though, of course, the common people loved him. But what I'm getting at here is obedience is no simple thing. It's knowing when to follow the rules and knowing when to break them. From the perspective of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Say that again. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as restored through the prophet Joseph Smith in 1830, led today by the president of the church, President Dallin H. Oaks, who I sustain, as well as his counselors, the members of the 12, of the Quorum of the 12, and other presiding authorities. But in the Book of Mormon, you probably don't know this, and I think it's the 4th chapter, Nephi, basically the main character up to that point. Let me put it to you in a misleading movie description way. He cuts off the head of a drunken, unconscious person because God tells him to. So what about, whenever you cut off the head of an unconscious drunk person, that's murder, okay? And Nephi, the main character here, says that God told him to do it, therefore it's okay. But the point is that the 10 Commandments say thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not murder. And again, whenever you cut the head off of an unconscious drunk person, that's murder. Okay, so Nephi murdered, I think his name was Laban, He cut off his head with Laban's own sword. He literally cut his head off with his own sword. He kept the sword too, by the way. So it was definitely just a typical murder. I'm not saying he was wrong for doing it. I'm just saying he broke a rule to do it, even if he was following God, like he said. So in some, follow the rules. Let me just read that Peterson quote again, and we'll end on that. Thanks for listening, by the way. Follow the rules until you are capable of being a shining exemplar of what they represent, but break them when those very rules now constitute the most dire impediment to the embodiment of their central virtues. Y'all take care.